recording. I think, yes, it has. All right. So, Mark, thank you for joining us today. On behalf of everyone at ARU or Australian Recreation Union, we really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with us. Just before we jump into the questions, I'd just like to give everyone a bit of context around what these interviews are all about. So at ARU, we're focused on supporting our members in the broader firearms and outdoor rec communities. With the 2027 New South Wales state election on the horizon, we think it's important that people have the opportunity to hear directly from those seeking to represent them, i.e. yourself. So this is the first of a series of conversations with New South Wales-based pro-recreation parties that have demonstrated genuine support for law-abiding firearms owners. So today's conversation essentially focuses on firearms policy and public access, public land access and use, with further topics to be covered in further interviews. Many within our community believe under the current New South Wales government that is led by Labor and supported by the Liberals and the Greens has moved away from common sense, evidence-based policy making in favour of increased regulation of law-abiding citizens. So the ARU shares our community's concern around the ongoing erosion of personal rights and civil liberties, both in New South Wales and at the national level. So with that in mind, if we can jump into some questions.
Absolutely.
So question one, what is the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party's position on the recent changes to the New South Wales firearms laws?
Yeah, well, they're appalling. They're proof that we have a government that's willing to use a political strategy to scapegoat innocent people. Law-abiding firearm owners were not the problem. We didn't fail. Police failed. New South Wales Firearms Registry failed. Intelligence agencies failed. And ultimately the government failed when they issued someone a licence that they never should have. They've continued to demonstrate incompetence when it comes to administering firearms laws. So we are obviously opposed to those changes. We fought hard against those changes, debating for 17 hours into Christmas Eve. We were prepared to go longer. I told members, get your Uber Eats turkey and ham ready, because we'll fight this to the bitter end. Which we did. We tried to move over 70 amendments, and as you've sort of alluded, the Liberals and Labor Party combined, including the Nationals, combined to actually pass this legislation. We could have got this bill to an inquiry with the Libs and the National Party, but they chose to not do that. The National Party were actually instructed by their Liberal Party colleagues to not obstruct the bill passing. So we actually could have stopped that legislation passing on Christmas Eve, which is really, really frustrating, because we as firearm owners have been scapegoated and been made to feel like terrorists and criminals when we are clearly not. We are the very best of society by the mere fact of what we have to do to maintain a firearms licence and own a firearm. So we're pretty appalled by where we are at the moment in terms of firearms legislation in this state, and we aren't going to back down. We will be opposing it at every step of the way.
It's a nice gift at Christmas.
Yeah, gift I'd rather not have, to be honest. It was pretty rough.
Hopefully this Christmas is a little bit more optimistic and positive. Jumping to the next question. So what plans does the SFFP have to support licensed firearms owners in New South Wales in the future?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, we want to repeal this legislation. That's our goal first and foremost. We've given notice of that repeal. We've got the legislation drafted. But outside of that, we want to go line by line on the current existing legislation and regulations and strike out anything that serves no purpose. There is a lot of things in the regulations that all it does is create paperwork, creates a money-making scheme for the government, but doesn't actually deliver anything in terms of public safety. And I mean that in the true sense of the word, not just the catch cry that government uses all the time, but real demonstrated public safety, and delivers no benefit for firearm owners like myself. So we want to go line by line, and if anything doesn't actually hit the mark in terms of delivering positive outcomes for shooters, we want to strike them out. There's a lot of niggly little things that sits in our regulations that serves no purpose and serves no benefit. We also want to take away the firearms registry from New South Wales Police. They've proven themselves to be dangerously incompetent, not just in this instance, but previously. There's been a whole range of examples where they have failed in their duty in administering the law, and have actually stepped into misinterpreting and making up parts or their own interpretation of the legislation and regulations to punish and essentially wage a bureaucratic war against us as firearm owners when we are actually their customer. We are the ones that are complying with the law. They shouldn't be trying to wage a war against us, wage a war against those that are complying with the law. So we want to take the registry out of the hands of the police. They're bad administrators. They've failed on multiple occasions, whether it's John Edwards, whether it's giving a license to Jihad Jack and then taking it back, whether it's giving the licenses to Akram. There's so many different examples. It needs to be taken out of the hands, moved back into Sydney where it can be dealt with professionally. Like the assistant commissioner in charge of the registry doesn't even she's visited the registry twice in 3 years. It needs to be out of the boondocks of the mid-north coast. Actually, staffed with professional people, not itinerant workers. We're hearing it's being staffed by backpackers, etc. It should be staffed by the very best people. It should be staffed by people that actually have knowledge on firearms and know actually what they're talking about. They should be held to the same high levels of account that we are as firearm owners if they're going to administer the law. So, look, that's a start, but I think first and foremost we need to repeal this legislation. It's poor, it's bad, it serves no purpose. It just other than to scapegoat law-abiding firearm owners, and it's a distraction from the real failures of this government.
Yeah, definitely. So there's SFFP, it's a bit of a mouthful, has called for a review and repeal of the December 2025 Firearms Act amendments. What specific changes would you like to see made to better support and protect responsible firearms owners?
Yeah, so as I said, we've given notice of that. The bill's actually drafted. So for those that don't know what repeal legislation is, it's essentially you're turning back time. So if this repeal legislation that we'll second read in August is passed, it'll be like Bondi never happened. So the terrorism and other legislation bill and all its components disappear. So no ownership caps, restoration of appeal rights through NCATs, getting rid of mandatory club membership. The whole suite of changes that were being proposed, gone. We go back to where we were from the beginning, and then from there we can begin to pursue more positive changes for firearm owners. As I said, there's a lot of stuff that sits in regulations that needs to be removed. There's a lot of the times police, when they're dealing with individual license holders or dealing with firearms dealers, they go for the immediate ban hammer when they're faced with small technical breaches of the Act, even though they have an ability to issue fines or pins. They go straight for the appeal, straight for the banning and removing of people's licenses. So there's a pin system there. Why not use it? why automatically punish people with suspension and revocation of licenses for very small technical breaches? So there's some positive things there that we can potentially, introduce into the legislation as well. Given that the regulations are open for discussion, we should all, as firearm owners, be thinking about those things that are, that really annoy us, that don't actually achieve anything, because it's our opportunity to push back the other way when regulations and legislation is being put up for debate. We know the police and the government will be pushing one way when they'd be pushing back the other way, and certainly that's what we intend to do. We want a proper focus on the real issues. The criminal intelligence between the intelligence sharing between agencies, organised crime. These are where the real problems are, not with law-abiding firearm owners like me and you. That's where the problems really lie. The government needs to get serious and invest their money tackling that, not tackling us.
Great. There's very detailed responses, which is, it's really, you can see the passion that you have for this industry. Jumping on, so what is your position or the party's position on public land use in New South Wales, including access to national parks? Will the party push to expand responsible access to public land, including national parks, for a wider range of rec activities such as hunting, fishing and shooting?
Yeah, absolutely. We believe we're all public landowners. The public land doesn't belong to inner city bureaucrats. It belongs to all of us. Decisions around how that's managed should be made by the people that actually use that land and want to use that land. We've always had a very strong policy about wanting to open up national parks for hunting, but not just national parks. We want to see other Crown land as well opened up, not just state forests, but Crown reserves, flora and fauna reserves. We know these places because when we're hunting in state forests, we can see that very land that we're not allowed to hunt right next door to us, and quite often there's no difference in the landscape, no difference in the flora, and it's quite frustrating, to not be able to go over there and actually contribute to conservation and hunt animals in those areas. And we're a growing sport. If you hunt in the state forest like I do quite regularly, I just came back from a week hunting down in Bondi. It's getting harder and harder to book spots, particularly in those peak hunting periods. So we need more space, 100%. So yeah, we're very passionate about that. I'm just chairing an inquiry into access to public lands and waterways across New South Wales, and looking at ways we can actually unlock more parcels of land. There's a lot of convoluted rules that exist between different government agencies, and some agencies don't even realise they own public land, which is highly frustrating. There's a lot of pockets of land that could be opened up for different types of recreation, not just hunting, but fishing, forward driving. So we've got a fairly strong policy around access to public land, fairly comprehensive. And it's available on our website, but we essentially want to reverse the onus back on the government, that we shouldn't have to prove why we deserve access to an area. The government should have to prove to us why we don't. So if they want to close areas, they should have to prove before they close them why they deserve to be closed. There's a lot of recreational groups out there that are willing to chip in and not just be custodians of the land in name, but actually chip in and help manage and maintain access to areas. And particularly the national parks are an agency that refuses to engage currently with that approach. And it's an approach that works well overseas. Particularly in the US, there's a lot of land that's been opened up by organisations being those custodians and maintaining and managing that access for everyone. So we think that's a better model, 100%. We're seeing more and more closures of roads, closures of access. And it's quite often those closures of roads that reduce access for people for hunting and fishing and forward driving. They can't drive down the road to get to their favourite fishing spot or their favourite camping spot. So yeah, and a lot of those road closures start as temporary. You know, they're always they're temporary, but then those temporary closures never they essentially become permanent. So we want to see a policy change where that they actually have to any temporary road closure that's still temporary at 12 months should be reopened straight away. Otherwise they need to justify to the Parliament why it's closed. Because time and time again we see national parks doing this. They do temporary road closures, and then it just all becomes too hard, too costly, and it's just easier just to shut the access off, and that's not good enough. Not in our book.
That's the end of the sort of more formalized questions, but I'm interested in, I suppose, from a personal standpoint, you're part of this community, this is your way of life. What actually made you dedicate yourself to representing this industry?
Just because I love it. I love what it's given me. Like, I have some of my best mates, who I consider family. I've gained them from hunting and shooting, and the outdoors lifestyle. Like I know what I've personally built with those mates, with my own hunting club. I know what it means to them. I know what it means to my family. Like, it's so ingrained in how I live, how I bring up my kids, how they bring up their kids. And if I've got the ability to step up and help protect that, why wouldn't I? Because if I lose hunting and shooting and being able to get outdoors, I don't know what I would do. It's such a big part of my life, and for anyone that does actually do it, like, it's hard to explain to someone unless you do how better you feel after coming away from a trip. Spending a couple of days out in the bush just recharging. You're better, your family's better for it. It's everything to me. And really, that's who you want representing you, is someone that, like,
Definitely.
it's not a passing phase. Like, it's not an issue that, if I lose it, I'll just move on to the next issue to campaign on. Like, it's everything. Like, it's existential. Like, but that's who you want representing you. We're not, we don't pretend to represent firearm owners. We are firearm owners.
Yeah.
We are hunters. We are forward drivers. We're fishers. Like, I live and breathe it. Just before this interview, I was standing in my kitchen cutting up a deer I'd shot. Getting ready to turn into sausages. Like, how many MPs are doing that? And are prepared to fight,
absolutely,
for others to be able to continue to experience that. So,
I guess as a lead on from that, just another question is there a particular moment, because you were previously a high school teacher, what made you start your political career into representing this community? Was there a moment that you thought, I need to change, or what occurred, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, sure. It was probably gradual. I got involved in the organisations around shooting and hunting while I was still teaching, and then from there I got asked to be part of the party and be involved. And I thought, well, I've got some knowledge and skills in terms of organisation, and that, why not? I'll put it to good use and benefit the community. And then eventually just got asked to do more and more things, like quite often happens. And it probably reached a point in my teaching career where I'd probably butted heads with enough senior public servants to know I probably wasn't going to get any further in education, and I got frustrated with how that was the path that was going down. And I just sort of said to myself, if I ever got to a point where I hated coming in to schools and teaching the kids and engaging with kids, I'd step out. Just saw so many teachers that hated that. Yeah, they hated coming to school, and it wasn't because they hated the kids; they hated the bullshit bureaucracy. So I reached that point, and thankfully, I guess a bit of fate. I was at a point where the party wanted me to step up and run for parliament. So yeah, the sort of stars aligned in that respect. Yeah, and haven't looked back. Loved every moment, even as even the frustrating ones. It's been an honour to represent hunters and shooters, and hope to continue to do so into the future.
Well, again, on behalf of ARU and all of its members, thank you for the work that you do and the passion that you put into it. It's, as you said, you want someone that lives it to represent it, and that's exactly you. So thank you for all of your work. The ARU will be supporting the SFFP in the next, or the lead up to the next 2027 New South Wales state elections, and look forward to chatting again in future interviews. Thanks for your time,
Awesome.
Mark.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Great.